He wants to kill me! Somebody help! Leave me alone! I'm your wife! I'm not a stick!
The evening shadows stretched across the modest apartment in Surula as Ngozi sat motionless on the worn sofa, her hands cradling her swollen belly. 7 months pregnant, and every day felt heavier than the last, not from the weight of her child, but from the burden of the man she called husband. Obinna, to the outside world, he was a respectable civil servant, a man who attended church every Sunday and greeted neighbors with a warm smile. But inside these walls, he was something else entirely. Inside these walls, Ngozi lived in constant fear. The sound of his key turning in the lock made her heart race. She knew that sound too well, the prelude to another night of walking on eggshells, of trying desperately not to say or do anything that would trigger his anger. But lately, nothing she did was right. Lately, everything provoked him. Ngozi, Obinna's voice cut through the apartment like a blade. Where is my food? She rose quickly, ignoring the ache in her lower back. It's ready, Obinna. I kept it warm for you in the kitchen. He brushed past her without acknowledgement, his movements sharp and agitated. Ngozi followed him slowly, watching as he lifted the lid from the pot. The aroma of jollof rice and chicken stew filled the air, a meal she'd spent hours preparing despite her exhaustion. Obinna took one look, and his face twisted in disgust. What is this nonsense? You cooked jollof rice again? Don't you know anything else? Ngozi's throat tightened. I thought you liked jollof rice. You said last week. I'm tired of the same food every day. He slammed the lid down so hard it rattled. Are you trying to punish me? Is that what this is? No, Obinna, please. I can make something else. Just give me. But he wasn't listening. In one swift motion, he grabbed the pot and turned it upside down, dumping the entire contents onto the floor. Rice scattered across the tiles like confetti at a tragic celebration. The hot stew splashed onto Ngozi's legs and feet, burning through her thin wrapper. She cried out, stumbling backward, her hands instinctively protecting her belly. The pain seared through her skin, but it was nothing compared to the familiar ache in her chest, the one that came from loving a man who seemed to hate her. Clean it up, Obinna commanded, his voice cold and flat. And don't expect me to eat anything tonight. You've ruined my appetite. He walked away, leaving Ngozi standing in the mess, tears streaming down her face as she slowly lowered herself to her knees. The baby kicked hard, as if protesting the chaos surrounding them both. I'm sorry, my child, she whispered, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry you have to feel this. Hours later, after cleaning the kitchen and changing into a nightgown, Ngozi lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her legs still throbbed from the burns, and she'd applied shea butter to soothe them, but the pain persisted. The baby hadn't stopped moving, and she wondered if her stress was affecting the child inside her. Obinna entered the bedroom, and immediately Ngozi tensed. She knew what was coming. It was the same pattern every time. His anger would peak, then cool, and then he would want her. It didn't matter that she was pregnant, exhausted, or in pain. Her protests had never mattered. Ngozi, he said, his voice softer now but still commanding. Come here. She didn't move. Her body refused to cooperate. Obinna, please, I'm not feeling well. The baby has been kicking all night and my legs. Don't start with excuses, he interrupted, climbing into bed beside her. I've had a long day. I need you to fulfill your duties as my wife. But I'm pregnant, she pleaded, her voice trembling. Can't we just sleep tonight, please? His expression darkened. Pregnant women have been taking care of their husbands since the beginning of time. You're not special, Ngozi. Stop acting like you're the first woman to carry a child. He reached for her, and despite her protests, despite her tears, despite everything inside her screaming to resist, Ngozi knew she had no choice. Obinna didn't see her as a partner, a companion, or even a human being. To him, she was property, something he owned and could use as he pleased. That night was like countless others before it, filled with silent tears and whispered prayers. When it was over, Obinna rolled over and fell asleep immediately, his snores filling the room. Ngozi lay awake, her body aching and her spirit broken. She placed both hands on her belly, feeling the baby's movements beneath her palms. "I promise you," she whispered into the darkness, "I will find a way to protect you, I promise." The next morning arrived too quickly. Ngozi dragged herself out of bed, moving slowly through her morning routine. She prepared Obina's breakfast in silence, setting the table with care. He barely looked at her as he ate, scrolling through his phone with one hand while shoveling food into his mouth with the other. "I'll be working late tonight," he announced without looking up. "Make sure dinner is ready by the time I get home, and this time, cook something different. Use your brain for once." Ngozi nodded, not trusting her voice to remain steady. The moment he left for work, she collapsed onto the sofa, exhaustion washing over her. But she couldn't rest, not yet. There was cleaning to do, laundry to wash, and a house to maintain, all while carrying a child that seemed to grow heavier by the day. As she worked, her mind wandered to the life she'd imagined when she agreed to marry Obina 3 years ago. He'd been different then, or maybe she'd been too naive to see the warning signs. He'd courted her with flowers and sweet words, promising to cherish and protect her. Her family had been thrilled, seeing him as a stable, respectable man who would provide for their daughter. But the mask had slipped soon after the wedding. First came the criticism, constant complaints about her cooking, her cleaning, her appearance. Then came the control, dictating what she wore, where she went, who she could speak to. And finally came the violence, starting with pushes and shoves, escalating to slaps and punches, and eventually to this, a daily existence of fear and pain. Ngozi's phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from her friend Adiz, one of the few people who knew what was happening behind closed doors. "Ngozi, how are you today? Please tell me you're okay." Ngozi's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to tell Adiz everything, wanted to pour out the events of last night and this morning, but shame held her back. What would people think? That she'd failed as a wife, that she'd brought this on herself somehow. She typed a simple response, "I'm managing, thank you for checking on me." But Adiz wasn't satisfied with that. Her reply came immediately, "Managing isn't enough. Ngozi, you're 7 months pregnant. You need to think about yourself and your baby. Please, let me help you." Ngozi read the message 3 times, her heart pounding. Help. The word felt foreign, like something that existed for other people but not for her. Could she really accept help? Could she really leave? Before she could respond, another message arrived. "I've been doing research. There's a women's shelter in UCHE. They help women in situations like yours. You don't have to live like this." A shelter, the word sent a wave of conflicting emotions through Ngozi. Relief that such a place existed, fear of what Obina would do if he found out, guilt over the thought of leaving her marriage, hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a way out. She placed her phone down and walked to the window, looking out at the busy Lagos street below. People went about their lives, unaware of the struggles happening in the apartment above them. How many other women were suffering in silence behind closed doors? How many were trapped like her, too afraid or too ashamed to seek help? The baby kicked hard, and Ngozi gasped, placing her hand over the spot. "What do you think, little one?" she whispered. "Should I be brave? Should I try?" As if in answer, the baby kicked again, stronger this time. Ngozi felt tears prick her eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. For the first time in months, they were tears of determination. She picked up her phone and typed a response to Adiz. "Can we meet tomorrow? I need to talk." The reply was instant. "Yes, I'll come to you. What time is Obina at work?" "He leaves by 7 a.m. and doesn't come back until evening," Ngozi typed. "Come at 9 a.m. I'll be there, and Ngozi, you're doing the right thing. I'm proud of you." Ngozi stared at the message, letting the words sink in. Someone was proud of her. Someone believed she was doing the right thing. It was a small comfort, but it was enough to keep the flicker of hope alive in her chest. That evening, Obina returned home in a foul mood. Ngozi had prepared fried rice and plantain, something different as he demanded, but it wasn't good enough. The rice was too dry, the plantain wasn't sweet enough, nothing satisfied him. Are you deliberately trying to make me miserable? He shouted, pushing his plate away. How difficult is it to cook a decent meal? I'm sorry, Ngozi said quietly, her eyes downcast. I'll try harder next time. Try harder, he laughed bitterly. You're useless, Ngozi, completely useless. I should have listened to my mother when she warned me about you. The words cut deep, but Ngozi said nothing. She'd learned long ago that arguing only made things worse. Instead, she cleared the table in silence, disposing of the food he'd rejected and washing the dishes with trembling hands. Later that night, as she lay in bed waiting for Obinna to finish his shower, Ngozi made a plan. Tomorrow, when Adiz came, she would tell her everything. She would ask for help getting to the shelter. She would take the first step toward freedom for herself and for her unborn child. The bathroom door opened, and Obinna emerged, his expression unreadable. Ngozi's heart sank as he approached the bed. She knew what he wanted, and her body instinctively recoiled. Please, Obinna, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Not tonight, the baby. Don't give me that excuse, he cut her off, his voice hard. You're my wife. This is your duty. What followed was another night of silent suffering, another violation of her body and spirit. But this time, as tears rolled down her cheeks, Ngozi held onto one thought. This would be one of the last times. Soon, she would be free. When morning finally came, Ngozi moved through her routine with new purpose. She prepared Obinna's breakfast, watched him leave for work, and then immediately began preparing. She packed a small bag with essentials, a change of clothes, her identification papers, the small amount of money she'd managed to hide away, and a notebook where she'd been documenting every incident of abuse, every bruise, every cruel word. At exactly 9 a.m., there was a soft knock on the door. Ngozi's heart leaped as she opened it to find Adiz standing there with her husband Chindu. Ngozi, Adiz breathed, pulling her into a gentle hug. Oh, my sister, let's get you out of here. Ngozi burst into tears, all the emotions she'd been holding back flooding out at once. Adiz held her, letting her cry, while Chindu stood respectfully to the side, his face grave with concern. I'm scared, Ngozi admitted between sobs. What if he finds me? What if he hurts you for helping me? Let him try, Chindu said firmly. We're not going to let fear control us anymore. You need help, and we're going to make sure you get it. Together they gathered Ngozi's belongings. It wasn't much, just the one small bag, but it represented everything, her past, her present, and hopefully her future. As they prepared to leave, Ngozi took one last look around the apartment that had been her prison for so long. I'm ready, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. The drive to the shelter in Ikja took about 40 minutes through Lagos traffic. Ngozi sat in the back seat, one hand on her belly, watching the familiar streets give way to unfamiliar ones. Each kilometer felt like a step away from her old life and toward something new, something terrifying but also hopeful. The shelter didn't look like what she'd imagined. Instead of a cold, institutional building, it was a modest compound with high walls for security, but warm, welcoming colors on the buildings inside. A woman named Sister Blessing met them at the gate, her kind eyes immediately putting Ngozi at ease. Welcome, my daughter, Sister Blessing said, taking Ngozi's hand. You're safe now, no one can hurt you here. Those words, simple as they were, broke something open inside Ngozi. She collapsed into Sister Blessing's arms, sobbing with a mixture of relief and residual fear. She'd made it. She'd actually made it out. Adiz and Chindu stayed for a while, helping Ngozi settle into her small but clean room. There was a bed, a small wardrobe, and a window that let in natural light. It wasn't much, but it was hers, a space where she didn't have to fear being hurt. We'll come visit you, Adiz promised as they prepared to leave. And call us if you need anything, anything at all. Thank you, Ngozi whispered, hugging her friend tightly. I don't know how to repay you. Just focus on healing, Adiz replied. That's all the repayment we need. After they left, Ngozi sat on the bed, her hands resting on her belly. The baby was quiet now, perhaps sensing that they were finally in a place of peace. Sister Blessing knocked gently on the door before entering with a tray of food. "You must be hungry," she said, setting the tray down. "Eat slowly, your body needs to adjust." As Ngozi ate, Sister Blessing explained how the shelter worked. "We have counselors who will help you process what you've been through. We have legal aid if you want to pursue action against your husband. And we have medical staff who will make sure you and your baby are healthy." "How long can I stay?" Ngozi asked nervously. "As long as you need," Sister Blessing assured her. "Some women stay for a few weeks, others for several months. There's no rush. This is about you reclaiming your life at your own pace." That night, for the first time in years, Ngozi slept peacefully. There were no footsteps to fear, no voice calling her name in anger, no demands she couldn't meet. Just silence, blessed silence, and the gentle movements of her baby inside her. Meanwhile, across the city in Serula, Obina arrived home to an empty apartment. At first, he wasn't concerned, assuming Ngozi had gone to the market or to visit a neighbor. But as hours passed and she didn't return, anger began to simmer in his chest. He called her phone repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail. He checked the closet and noticed some of her clothes were missing. The realization hit him like a punch. She'd left. His wife had actually had the audacity to leave him. Rage consumed him as he tore through the apartment, looking for clues about where she might have gone. How dare she embarrass him like this? What would people think when they found out his pregnant wife had run away? He grabbed his phone and started making calls, first to Ngozi's family, then to mutual friends, demanding to know where she was. But no one claimed to know anything. Either they truly didn't know or they were protecting her. Either way, Obina was determined to find her and bring her back. She was his wife. She belonged to him, and he would make sure she understood that. Back at the shelter, Ngozi woke up the next morning feeling strange. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was, then it all came flooding back. She was free. She was safe. The realization brought fresh tears, but this time they were tears of gratitude. Sister Blessing introduced her to the other women at the shelter during breakfast. There were 5 others, all with their own stories of abuse and survival. As they shared their experiences, Ngozi realized she wasn't alone. These women understood her in ways no one else could. One woman, Kioma, was particularly encouraging. "I've been here for 2 months," she said. "When I first arrived, I was broken just like you, but look at me now. I'm taking computer classes. I'm rebuilding my life. You can do the same." The counseling sessions began that afternoon. Ngozi sat across from a gentle therapist named Mrs. Okafor, who listened without judgment as Ngozi poured out years of pain and humiliation. It was exhausting, but also cathartic, like lancing a wound that had been festering for too long. "What you experienced was not your fault," Mrs. Okafor told her firmly. "Abuse is never the victim's fault, no matter what anyone says. You didn't cause this, and you didn't deserve it." Hearing those words spoken aloud made something shift inside Ngozi. She'd spent so long blaming herself, wondering what she'd done wrong, how she could have been a better wife. But maybe, just maybe, the problem had never been her at all. Days turned into weeks. Ngozi's body began to heal, and slowly, so did her spirit. She attended daily counseling sessions, participated in group therapy with the other women, and started making plans for her future. The shelter helped her apply for government assistance, connected her with legal aid to begin divorce proceedings, and arranged for prenatal care at a nearby clinic. The medical checkup revealed that despite everything, the baby was healthy and developing normally. "You're stronger than you know," the doctor told her, "both you and this child." But even as Ngozi began to heal, fear still lingered. What if Obina found her? What if he forced her to come back? What if he hurt someone at the shelter trying to get to her? Her fears weren't unfounded. Obina had become obsessed with finding her. He'd gone to her parents' house, demanding they tell him where she was. When they claimed ignorance, he'd caused a scene, shouting accusations and threats until neighbors called the police. He'd also tracked down Adiz, correctly suspecting she knew something. He'd showed up at her workplace, making threats until security escorted him out. Adiz immediately called to warn Ngozi. "He's looking for you," she said, her voice tense. "He came to my office today. Security had to remove him." Ngozi's hands trembled as she held the phone. "What did he say?" "He said you belong to him, that he'll find you no matter what. Ngozi, you need to be careful. Consider getting a restraining order." Sister Blessing overheard the conversation and immediately took action. She increased security at the shelter, informed the local police about the situation, and helped Ngozi file for a restraining order. But they all knew paper wouldn't stop a determined man. As Ngozi entered her 8th month of pregnancy, the baby's movements became stronger and more frequent. She would sit in her room, hands on her belly, talking to her unborn child. "We are going to be okay," she would whisper. "I'm going to give you a better life than I had. You won't grow up watching your mother being hurt. You won't learn that love means pain. I promise you that." The other women at the shelter had become like family. They celebrated small victories together, Kioma getting a job, another woman named Faith reconnecting with her estranged sister, Ngozi successfully filing for divorce. Each triumph, no matter how small, was a reminder that they were all moving forward. But progress wasn't linear. There were hard days when Ngozi questioned everything, days when she missed the familiarity of her old life, even if it was painful, days when she wondered if she'd made the right choice. Those were the days when Sister Blessing would sit with her, reminding her why she'd left, what she was fighting for. "Healing isn't a straight line," Sister Blessing would say. "It's messy and complicated, but you're doing it. Every day you wake up and choose to keep going, you're doing it." One afternoon, as Ngozi sat in the shelter's small garden, feeling the warm Lagos sun on her face, she realized something profound. For the first time in years, she felt like herself again. Not Obina's wife, not someone's victim, just Ngozi, a woman who'd survived, who was still standing, who was about to become a mother. She pulled out the notebook where she'd been documenting her healing journey, adding to the entries about the abuse. Now she wrote about hope, about strength, about the future she was building for herself and her child. "My baby will know a different kind of love," she wrote. "They will grow up watching their mother be strong, not broken. They will learn that they deserve respect, dignity, and kindness. They will never question their worth the way I questioned mine." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, Ngozi felt the baby kick strongly. She smiled, placing both hands over the spot. "We're going to make it," she whispered. "Both of us, we're going to be just fine." And for the first time since this nightmare began, Ngozi truly believed it.